It's good for our community. But looking at what can be done, it's an easy solution. Either way, they're going to have complaints sent to you, but basically, there's one decision that is more correct than the other. These kids can't change this, they don't have control, but parents and spectators and families can change things, and it's their time, not ours. And I really hope that you will consider it for this year, and especially going forward if you don't do it for this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that has would like to approach the board at this time? Okay, we will move on to administrative reports.
All right. I think like long awaited here. We have Chad here with transportation to talk about busing, specifically the opportunity or consideration for restoring high school busing. As he gets ready to come up, I just want to remind the board that we already service students above the state minimum. State minimum would be kindergarten through 8th grade with a 2-mile radius. Right now we have all of our Woodland students have the opportunity to ride a bus. And at the middle school, if they live more than 1 mile from the school, they also have the opportunity to ride the bus. This year and last, when families of high schoolers had a hardship and reached out to the building or central office, the request was considered. Of 6 formal requests that we received, all 6 were granted. Currently, we only have 3 students in grades 9 through 12 regularly riding the bus to school, and there's no students riding the bus after. So there's some factors for that. After school extracurricular activities that they do. After school or during school, they can find a friend, give them a ride home. And also after school, there's natural light out, sunlight, and so parents feel more comfortable with their kid walking compared to in the morning. There was a question about, as we're looking at this, can we consider reducing ride time to 30 minutes or less for all riders? Our goal is typically to have 40 minutes or less, because after that 40-minute mark is you start to get maybe a little, misbehaviors and things like that happening on the bus. Not always possible, especially in the township, farm roads that we have. But we estimated that to achieve a 30-minute or less bus ride for all students, we estimated it would take 3 additional routes, which would mean 3 additional drivers. I think everyone is aware that drivers right now are very hard to find. We currently have a posting open for immediate hire, and we have another one open for hire in August because one of our drivers is scheduled to retire. And additionally, the union contract guarantees drivers 4 hours per day. So even with the shorter routes, they're still guaranteed 4 hours of service a day. So having meaningful work for them for those 4 hours would be a challenge. Essentially, working with the treasurer, it's estimated that the total cost of the driver, so salary, benefits, and salary and benefits, would be $43,600 to $45,600. So adding 3 would be about $130,000 to $137,000. In addition to additional bus purchases that would be needed, wear and tear, and fuel for those. So trying to elevate the service so that no one's riding more than 30 minutes really is not feasible. And I think I already talked a little bit, but we're fortunate to have many students involved in extracurricular activities, which provides them for riding in the afternoon. And I said afternoon travel. Okay. Our attendance and truancy teams, they continually assess factors that cause students to arrive late or not attend school, and when transportation is the reason, services are considered and offered. Students typically decline riding due to the stigma of the yellow bus, the yellow Cadillac. And then lastly, some asked, are you going to survey parents or students to see what potential ridership would be? We chose not to because we would anticipate having false positives and false negatives. So mom and dad saying, yeah, my kid's going to ride the bus, and the kid finds a friend or some other means to get to school. And false negatives would be the kid saying, no, I'm not riding that bus. And the parent says, you absolutely are, because that's the way you're getting to school. So we didn't want to put that out there and then have inaccurate data that we're trying to make a decision on. And so with that, I turn it over to Chad. He has been working with the administrative team, the bus driving staff, and he's developed 3 options that he's going to go over, and there'll be a little discussion. No action is anticipated tonight, but from this discussion, we'll go back and refine that again, and there could be potentially a recommendation in March based on conversations tonight.
All right, thank you. So the first option we have there is option A. Sorry, I don't have handouts for the audience. So option A would be to maintain current services for K-8 students, actually pre-K-8 students, and then 9 through 12 students by special request with documented hardship that goes through Dr. Tatman. So that would mean that we'd maintain the 5 routes that we have, 1 special needs route, no high school busing, and then students pre-K through 5, they would all be eligible for service. And then just like we currently have, students in 6 through 8 living greater than a mile from school would have service, and then 9 through 12 would have no service unless the hardship was considered. So then down below, we just laid out the routing assumptions. So right now, the buses are picking up students and dropping off the pre-K through 8 students. Their first stop is at McCormick. We have some buses that get there as early as 7 a.m., 7:05, and then the last bus usually rolls in about 7:15. And I believe that their school day starts at 7:25 now, 7:30. Okay. And then from there, they go over to Woodlands, usually where they sit for probably 8 to 10 minutes. Some students get off early if they're going to go in for breakfast, but everybody else is dismissed into the building when they're fully staffed at 7:30. And then we have our EHOVI bus that leaves the high school here at 7:35. Then in the afternoon, as you can see here, as you know, last year we had to make a pivot when we went from 6 routes to 5 routes. So we started picking up McCormick students a little earlier. So this option would still pick them up at 2:20, get them home, and then get over to Woodlands as quick as they can, as safely as they can, anywhere between 2:40 and the last bus pulls in about 2:55, 2:58. EHOVI students get picked up in the afternoon by the special needs bus. It's outside the district. And then those students from Woodlands, some of the last ones to get dropped off about 3:50. So that's our current option, and that's option A. Option B, when we looked at it, this would be adding the high school riders and then having 1 pre-K 12 morning route and then 2 p.m. routes. So we would do the pre-K 5 and then the 6-12 route in the afternoon. Still maintaining the 5 buses for regular routes, 1 special need route. Then the mile radius would apply for both middle school and high school students. And then everybody else, pre-K through 5, would be eligible for service. It does change up some times, which would change probably the teacher start time and the start of their days. So we would need to get the students over to McCormick at about 7:05, then drop at the high school at 7:10-ish. And then to keep Woodlands where it's at currently, we'd get them there at 7:30 with the EHOVI bus still leaving at 7:35. In the afternoon, there would be 2 routes, similar to what there is now, but just a little bit of different ordering. We would pick up at Woodlands at 2:25. And by doing this, it would avoid both pedestrian and vehicle traffic around Woodlands. A lot of times when the buses are pulling down the street, down Buckeye, there's a lot of car traffic and pedestrian traffic leaving, which makes it difficult to navigate down the narrow road. So that means we can get our buses in there before the students get let out, and then get them going, and then the walkers and riders could be released. We would deliver the Woodlands students home, and then the buses would make their way to the high school at about 3:05. So we base the 40 minutes off of that's how long it takes right now to get the last bus, getting the last kids home. So we'd pick up at 3:05 and then pick up at 3:10 over at McCormick. Discussions with the principals, they thought it'd be easier to corral and maintain junior high and high school kids in a large area than it would to make the elementary kids wait longer, since there's more riders of those anyways. Then we would still maintain, we got to pick up at EHOVI at 3 o'clock, so that's still a factor. And then this would leave our latest students getting dropped off approximately at 4 p.m. So a little bit later, for junior high and high school. And then option C, option A with the request of high school riders by parents via form filling out hardship. So still the 5 routes, 1 special need, the mile radius from McCormick and high school. And so that's all the same. And then the routing assumptions, we would do 1 a.m. route for pre-K through 8, drop off at McCormick at 7:15, and then we could we could have our high school students that need a ride over to the high school, which we currently do for a couple of our math students. They would get off at McCormick, hop on a connecting ride over to the high school, get dropped off there, and then the rest of the students would go over to the Woodlands at 7:30. And then the Hobie bus is still leave at 7:35. And then in the afternoon, pre-K 8 ride, delivering home, pick up at McCormick at 2:20, take those 6th and 7th graders home, pick up at Woodlands between 2:40 and 2:55, just like before. So we're still getting home about 3:50. So those are the options that we came up with based off the information given to us by the drivers, like Dr. Tappan said, the building principals, myself, and Dr. Tappan, Julie, and Mike. If anybody has any questions.
So the option C is to, you have the 1 mile radius for middle school and high school, so they can ride it, or you have the hardship on there also? I'm just trying to decide what the difference is between option A and C.
There's not a whole lot of difference in the option A and C, correct, James?
Yeah, the difference between A and C is that with C, they don't have to demonstrate that hardship. They would just say, I need a bus. And
But without the hardship, sorry.
Yes.
And we would have to figure out a way to give them a bus, so long as they live outside that mile radius. So A, right now is what we're doing as far as, hey, I have a hardship, or what is it? Well, I just don't want to get up and get my kids to school. That is not a hardship. Now, parents don't call me with that. That was funny. Okay. But with C, they wouldn't have to give a reason of a hardship. They could just say, I want my kid to ride a bus, and we figure out a way to get it done. And then with B, just as we work through it, one thing that might not come on a first read is that with B, and the driver's already pointed it out, we might have parents say, well, my Woodlands kid gets babysat by my older kid, so what happens there when my Woodlands kid gets home a half hour, 40 minutes earlier? So with that, the parent could request the Woodlands kid continue to ride, so the kid would stay on the bus, and then when the middle school and high schoolers get off, the kid gets off with them. So, or the parent, could work to find a neighbor or a friend or all those other options. But if they were like, this is the absolute, I need my middle schooler to watch my younger, the younger could ride. It'd be a long afternoon for that kid though. So, yep.
Do any of these change start times or anything?
So option B would change. I think the Woodland start time. No, I don't think it does. Right?
No, it would change McCormick start time because they would be getting there a little earlier.
So I think they would start 5 or 10 minutes earlier. And talking with Mark, as he's working with his teachers on master scheduling, he said that he would build in then like a study hall period, part of that WIN experience, where they can get ready for the day, get set, and go. But then the end of the day, they're going to be hanging out in the auditorium waiting for the buses to pick them up at 3:10 time. So.
And right now, you have accommodated the 6 hardship requests that you've received.
Correct, yes.
And that's all that you've received is 6 hardship requests.
Yeah, correct. So others might be putting stuff out on social media or whatnot, but requests that have come to my office, there's been 6, and all 6 have been granted. So, yeah, we've made it work. I mean, obviously you have to be in school in order to learn, and we want our kids to be successful. So when they have trouble getting to school, we find a way to help them achieve that.
Chad, what was the setup prior to busing being stopped back in whatever that was, 2020, 2021?
They would come here and pick up Tim, I think at like 2:30. Yeah, so they would pick up here And the buses were pretty bare leaving here. There would sometimes be a bus leaving with only 3 kids. And I had those numbers at one time. I thought I gave them to James, but we didn't include them in here. Like the current freshman class that would have experienced having busing last year, I think out of those there wasn't very many. So spread across 5 buses, ideally equally, it would be five per bus. So they used to pick up at the high school, load up, get out before the high school student traffic, because if not, you're gonna get tangled up in that if you've ever been here. Then make the back way over to McCormick, coming down the back alley, picking up there, delivering home, and then. But that was also when Woodlands had a dismissal time of 3:30. So those Woodland students weren't getting home. We had bus drivers working from 2 to 5 at that time. So I believe like the latest time somebody got delivered then was like 4:50 out there, like on the Shide Road, out there by Farmer Jones's area. So it makes for a long day for those kiddos that got to get up early.
That's a good point too. When we were talk with the 2 unions, teachers union, support staff union, they're like, hey, we really like how how school days are almost they have really similar start and end times, right? There wasn't this big gap that used to exist when we had 4 campuses and the busing factors and all that. And it does help when we have like professional development activities and we do share staff, building share staffs. So when they're shared and then they have this like, well, I start really early, but then you want me to go really late, like contractually we can't make them do that. So it does help. And again, these 3 options sort of maintain the current, to the best of our ability, the current start and end times. And obviously we could restore high school busing with minimal additional costs. So the options that are here, they don't have hiring more staff. There might be a little more mileage and fuel, but ultimately it's, I won't say a wash, but it's marginal additional costs. So we could get it done. Sorry. I mean, we could get it done. So
And
it's really,
also when we had the high school busing before, I forgot that there used to be 2 loops in the morning. So there would be junior high school loop, and then the elementary kids would get picked up because their start time was, I think we dropped off at 8:50, started at 9:05 or something like that. So that's what it used to be. Double loop in the morning, 2 loops in the afternoon as well. I think Dr. Tapman alluded to in this before I presented about having this student survey, the parent survey, to see if they want to. I know if maybe as myself as a parent, I would say yes, my daughter's going to ride the bus in hopes that one day if she would need to ride the bus, I know it's there. But then we could get a lot of false positives or whatever you want to say. So like we would plan for 130 kids to ride and then 30 ride or something like that. So then it would really mess up our times. So if we would do the option where they could request a ride, we would just have to set some parameters. Like if you don't ride for a week or 2, you're going to be off. We'll take you off the route. You're going to have to give us 3-day notice to get back on. Things like that. Getting them home is not that big of a deal, but if we don't go down a road because we don't think anybody's out on Fox Road, it could be problematic.
I'm assuming that ridership in the afternoon, changes according to sports schedules and after-school curriculars and.
Yeah, just like McCormick kids here pretty soon. Track will be starting, so there's an influx of 60, 70 kids that won't be riding the bus potentially. So yes, it does change quite a bit.
Doing this, appreciate it.
Anybody else?
Thanks for answering the question on the shortening the time, because I think that's part of the reason we have so many people dropping off in the mornings and stuff and picking up, but maybe not, but it seems like some of the reasons is I don't want my kid to be on the bus so long, but I was just curious on how much it would take to do. So appreciate that.
yeah, and I'll share this in risk of like opening another can, but last Tuesday when it was super cold, but we had school, the car ride or drop off at Woodlands did bleed onto Cleveland Road, even all the way back to I think Officer Lobster to Buckeye. And why? Well, because people were like, I don't want my kids standing out waiting for the bus. I'm going to drive. So it resulted in more cars coming to there. But that really has been a rarity. Um, Parents are learning how to stay tight to the car in front of them, right? So those gaps add up to extra cars. Kids are more efficient getting out of the vehicles and moving. Last week when we had some snow and whatnot, that was a little slower, so that caused that. But overall, that works. But yeah, we would love for kids to ride the bus in the morning as opposed to making a long car ride drop off. Statistically, it's the safest way to travel, a school bus, and it's a fun social thing for the kids too. But I, as a parent myself, recognize the benefit of that one-on-one or one-on-two time in the car when you're getting ready to start your day and have a little quiet time where you maybe don't have as much technology distractions and stuff like that, but you can talk to your kids. So I get why parents want to drive their kids too. So.
Anyone else? Any other thoughts, questions? Mr. Carter? Okay.
So as we go back to work with staff, should we continue to refine this option B where it is stated it's high school busing, or should we be looking at probably option C where it's you don't have to demonstrate a hardship and we need to start building out processes like a request, a 3-day review, and then things like that. Like what should I be working with the staff on?
I think it'd be best to make it as easy as possible for parents. And I think that to work on option C, that high school riders by parents via form without hardship requirement, I think that makes it easier for parents. If we could explore that option, I think that would be interesting.
Okay, good deal.
That's my opinion. I mean,
I think the use of the shuttle bus is more creative there too. I mean, it gets them over there quickly. They get to middle school, jump on that bus, get over there. And you don't have to change all these times like you do in option B. So, yeah.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Jeff.
Mr. Bauer?
Hello. Not as a lot is going on in the schools, but we're already halfway through this third quarter already, which is insane. It's going quite quickly. But for the high school, there's been a lot of sports news, I bet, as you've all seen. So in girls basketball, boys basketball, wrestling, and bowling, they've all made it on to the next round. So the girls and boys basketball both were sectional champs, and then for wrestling and bowling, some made it on to the next round for districts. And then we had a state diver last week. I forget, it was Tuesday he competed. And then also last week, we had a state swimmers there as well. So a lot has been going on. They've made it to the finals. Some of them are actually in the crowd.
Well, stand up and let us congratulate you. Swimmers. Good job.
And then spring sports have started up. That's all I have.
Stan? Dr. McDonald?
Back in the fall, we were officially notified that the high school would be 5 stars again. And last week, our most recent banner showed up. We wanted to show that off, and we'll get them hung up. And that is, it's not a checkered flag, if you will. It's more like the green flag for now what? What's next? And Tim and I talk a lot about, this is direct result. You got your achievement, you got your progress, you got your gap closing, and those are all tied to the end of year, or excuse me, end of course, but end of course exams, right? So always looking and fine tuning, and Tim implementing the data teams have gone a long way. We're always trying to, how do we go from good to great? Well, now we're trying to get from great to greater, right? So a big shout out to the staff that are doing those difference-making things, if you will, which also includes part of the stars here. Shout out to the school counseling department because they are the graduation rates, and they're also
the readiness for career college, military, and all that good stuff. But that's changing for next year. We'll talk about that later. But every student has a graduation plan, you know, so and we are good to go with everybody getting qualified for graduation. So biggest shout out to everybody that is involved with that. And I know also last fall we had a conversation about students and staying on campus and having that high school experience. Also, we have a pretty hefty CCP and AP program. So another shout out to we have 9 staff members who have advanced credentials and training that allow us to offer 54 college credit bearing opportunities on campus without having to leave. And for our size high school, I think that's pretty darn good. And actually, some of those opportunities extend down to the middle school as well. So appreciate the folks that are all involved in that and doing things to make that happen. So in our conversation of what's next, in our updates, you may have read about our work going forward with the industry recognized credentials, otherwise known as IRCs. Sorry about more alphabet soup, but taking a look at those, when those first came out, those were a pathway for students to graduate who weren't meeting other ways to graduate. There's a lot of ways that you can get your credentials to graduate, but with time and with refinement, now we're looking at 15 different courses that we currently offer here at the high school, where we can offer opportunities for students to get up to, or even more so, depending on how we do this, if we're just getting started, these 12 industry recognized credentials that would set them apart on their academic resumes, get them experience through their work that they're already getting through here. So if I could use Bobby James's junior senior seminar class as an example, that could be worth so many industry credentials. The housing job skill actually helps too, which is another part of getting to graduate. And looking at those opportunities in such a way that kids are getting credit for the work that is taking place in those classes, but also for us refining some of the work that is also taking place in those classes. So we met with SST2, and they're going to be helping us do that and seeing what exactly aligns and, you know, where should we start? Because, you know, of course we get excited. We're like, we could do all of this, but perhaps we should start here, right? And so, and part of that conversation too is the Greater Cleveland Partnership, in partnership with the Greater Sandusky Partnership, has a lead on pre-apprenticeship programs. And so, Dr. Chapman has graciously volunteered us to volunteered us, but appropriately so. We have our coffee shop on Friday mornings that we could extend looking into that and getting students credit for that pre-apprenticeship program. So this is all probably in the last 3 weeks, so more to come on that, but just wanted to give a shout out to people doing the work and making the things happen and getting our students more opportunities here locally, but also in the region as well. So, and our work with the BAC is also helping with those connections. So we got a big spring coming up with different opportunities for the BAC. So really looking forward to it.
So are all of the industry, those, are they all off campus? Students go
Not
to different
necessarily.
businesses,
They
or
can be here.
can be here too?
So there are 9 different groupings of industries, if you will, and within each of those groupings are different activities that students can complete, and some of them are universal to all 9 areas. So one of them is driver's ed. So looking at what DeWine has going for that and information coming out on that, we'll keep a close tab. Different OSHA classes that we could offer. CPR is one. That conversation is going to flesh out with SST2 because Tim has supplied our courses that we think could have a match and what can we embed in there. So this is Sadowski's class. So we're looking at Microsoft Suite, right? There's one that you could do with Minecraft, which Mrs. Ryan does. So just different opportunities to get creative. One, making sure kids are getting everything available to them that they're already doing, getting credit for that as a thing. 2, our constant work with soft skills, right? So that's great if you got the brain power, but if you can't communicate with somebody, you're not going very far with brain power, right? So, and that communication looks different across all those fields as well. So, not only having universal ones, but also ones specific to those different groups. There will be off-site opportunities, yes, but you know, trying to see what we have first here. That's that low-hanging fruit, and then expand from there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for that explanation.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Mr. Lindarius?
Financials through January were 7 months through the fiscal year, 58% of the way through. Revenues for all funds and general fund revenue was right around 47%. You'll see a large jump in that when we do the February financials. We got our tax advance, so that should jump up and catch us up for the year. Expenditures in all funds were at 54.4%, and general fund were at 51.3%. So we're trending below our anticipated expenditures. That's good news for now. Donations for January: $2,000 from the Sandusky Elks for the Huron Memorial Scholarship Fund. And item C is a purpose statement and budget for high school track. I think we're still waiting on baseball and softball, and then that'll wrap those up for the year. Updates: I attended a webinar today on some state funding updates. I really don't have much to update as of right now. It looks like the reductions in the guarantee funding are going to stay at 5 and 10%, 5% next year, 10% the following year. We're looking at about 100. It'll cost us about $133,000 next year, and about $267,000 the following year. So as of right now, nothing really has changed from that. We'll see how this progresses, but you know, even when I go to do the 5-year forecast in May, I'm gonna assume that that's how this is gonna play out. And then the last thing I had updated our PI budget. What I did is up top for the receipts, I updated the increase in the property tax that we're going to see, as well as Ardall. I added that tax abatement in here. Last year was the first year that we received that, and that's a large one. So that'll run for 15 years. So really, between those two things, we're seeing a healthy increase in our PI funds. So that's a good sign. That, and then if you go down below in the expenditures, I don't know if it's highlighted, that Capital One, I think was the one. No, I'm sorry, the Huntington National Bank was the COPS loan for the Woodlands project that we paid off. So you can see that's about 150 that we're also saving year in and year out. As far as the expenses go, under the bus purchases is the main part I want to point out. When we were going through the aging fleet that we have, we purchased a bus last year. I think to get on a decent cycle, we're probably going to want to purchase a bus for the next 2 or even 3 years in a row, and then we can take a year off, and then maybe do that cycle again. That'll get us on a much better cycle. By the time that cycle, the 2 runs of that are done, we'll be starting it over again. After about 10 years, Chad, is a good time frame for a bus based on the miles that we put on it. So I included that in here. I think we've gotten by in the past without doing a cycle like this, but it might be a good time to start thinking about the ages of the buses. And then the other major expense that I'm trying to plan for is the turf at the stadium. I believe in 30 or 31 is when we're going to have FY 30-31 is when we're going to have to start really thinking about replacing that. We made a couple calls with inflation and where that could be in the next 5-6 years, 600,000-700,000. So I'm trying to throw that in there and anticipating that as well. Tech equipment, we are on a nice schedule with our new tech crew for cycling through employee tech. We had some devices that were really out of date, so we're trying to get on a cycle of, I think right now, I think it's 14 we're planning on replacing yearly, I think is the number. So we'll be able to get staff caught back up and not so outdated equipment. The other thing I did want to point out, last year, I think Betty had mentioned this too. In FY24, you can see the sale of Shawnee up in the revenue section, and then you see that come out down at the bottom of the Shawnee set aside. So when you're looking at these final balances, it doesn't include that Shawnee money. So that's just something I wanted to have everyone keep in mind.
remains unspent and unallocated for a purchase.
Correct. It's sitting in Star.
Invested in stock.
It's sitting in Star, so that's a good thing. That's kind of a high overview. I really think that this is a very fluid document. You know, it takes a boiler going out or something, and yeah, there's a little bit of money in for building stuff, but you know, we'll just have to keep an eye on it and then see where it goes. But I anticipate on trying to do this at least every 6 months, if not sooner, depending on if we have a major expense that needs to come out of it, just to keep everyone updated. So we'll try to go over this more frequently than we have in the past.
Like, wasn't statutorily there like a limit or conditions on what the Shawnee proceeds can be spent on?
I would have to go back and look and see what sort of was in the resolution that was passed. I know that there must be something because I think it was just PI.
Yes, it can't go like to general.
Oh, correct. It's in PI. So in order to take that back to general fund, that would involve a whole nother. We're not going to do that unless it's absolutely necessary. Yeah, it'll stay there. It can't be used on salaries and benefits or anything. It has to be used on PI expenditures. Yeah.
I don't know what we just did it, but the track, and is that something, I have no idea what the life expectancy is on that, but thinking, it feels like the turf was just done, so thinking about it already,
Yeah.
within 6 years or so, like
Right.
wondering where that might come in.
I continue on there. You know, it drops back down to like 100, say, and then 100, and then we'll do 2. Chad, we did call on the track. How long did they say? I know it'll be repainted.
Yeah, like
or-
20 years.
Yeah, but that isn't as large of an expense as what we just did.
No.
So
I think as long as you do the maintenance, the 5-year respray, which includes respraying the surface and then repainting, it should last 20 to 25 years. And obviously, wear and tear, like amount of use, which it's open to the community all the time. Kids use it all the time. But yeah, it's like 20 to 25 for like a total redo, like we just did 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago.
It's turf in the stadium, less so, right? That's more of like an 8 to 10 year
Yeah.
lifespan.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, they say 8 to 10. It depends on usage, and thankfully, we got kids using it, and
what it's
different,
for.
different. Yeah, it's what it's for. So different sports are using it. I saw. I'm trying to know where I was. I saw kids playing on it the other day, but I don't think it was our turf because it's snow covered right now. But yeah, I mean, it's basically used 10 months out of the year. So,
Mr. Mandarius?
So yeah, I do. On the purpose and budget statements, could we take a look at providing like so one of the things in working with the boosters that surprised me was like the varying amounts of money in each of the athletic accounts that are sitting with boosters. And some of them, there's a significant amount of money, whether folks are raising it through fundraisers or biddy camps or whatever. And I guess to me, what my concern is for families that are paying pay to play and then are being like asked to raise funds in addition to that. I guess my question is like, what's it going for? Like, what do you need the money for? And if you don't need the money, then why are we, especially on fundraisers, why are we going out and asking the community to give money to X program if there's no specific need for it and it's just sitting in an account, right? And so I guess on the purpose and budget statements, I would envision maybe a little more detail where the coaches sit down with you and with the athletic directors, say like, hey, here's what I need maybe this year, here's what I'm looking for in 3 to 5 years, but like, and make sure you all are on board with what they envision they actually need with what the boosters may donate, and then a plan, on how to fundraise. It seems like right now we don't have a lot of that like oversight or governance, at least from my perspective. Maybe there's things that happen that I don't know about.
So are these fundraisers that are put on by the boosters?
Well, so I think that's an area of opportunity for us. And I want to pause for a second. This isn't like this is not a criticism of any coach, anybody involved. This is an opportunity for this board and the administration to set better governance and transparency. So our coaches are doing the best they can with almost like no instructions or guidance, right? But we know we're a small community, And we know that when you have a kid that's in 2 or 3 sports, and each of the sports has their own fees and fundraising, and then you have to pay to play on top of it, it adds up. Then you got to go buy the equipment that your specific athlete or activity needs on top of that. So really, it's like, how do we make sure we're not overburdening the community, especially if there's not a specific immediate need to raise funds. So as I understand what happens right now is a lot of the athletic teams, either they ask parents for fees or there's fundraisers, but that gets paid into an account for boosters. So it's like you're kind of directed to pay that to the boosters. Boosters hold the money, and then at some point release it to the different teams.
So it sounds like what we're going to need to do is have probably a meeting with the boosters as well to determine the process for fundraising, because it sounds like theirs is different than.
But those are our coaches, I think, that are leading the fundraisers. The boosters are just holding the money.
Okay. Yeah, that needs to probably be something that's addressed. If our coaches are running these fundraisers, it should probably be coming to us for us to hold in our accounts.
I would think there at least needs to be governance and transparency
Sure.
over it. So I just say that I was, and again, Mike's just happened to be in front of us for track, so he's just but right there. So if there's $17,000, I get he's saying, well, I need equipment for. What are we raising for? And if if there's a need and everybody's on board with it, great. But if we're just collecting money and holding it, then I think, and again, not a criticism of Mike, because he works hard to get the kids what they need. But like, how do we make sure too that there's enough resources in the community for all the needs of the different activities?
Sure. Yeah.
So I just throw that out there. I know I gave Matthew a list that the boosters had provided too, but really just the opportunity, like, again, everybody's doing good work, but just to make sure we're not overburdening the community with fundraising when there's not a specific need for it.
Yeah. Absolutely. We'll take a look at that. We'll contact the boosters and we'll set something up to try to figure this out.
Because ideally, shouldn't any student fees for a sport be run through the district, not the boosters?
Yeah, so I think like athletic team fees, those should flow
Yeah.
through the district.
Those-
Fundraiser, it might be a booster fundraiser. So, but yeah, we'd have to we need to look at that. And I know already Boosters is having a changeover in treasurer. They're potentially having a changeover in presidency. So there's going to be this opportunity for like, let's all come together and make sure that we're all rowing in the same direction, or things like that. So yeah, I think timing is now is a good one.
Yeah.
Yep. So I'm just going to go to the items on the consent agenda. The first would be the second reading and then action of the policies. So one's about positive behavior interventions, staff conduct, and then executive sessions. So the executive session one is recommendation out of OSBA. Same with the positive behavior one. The staff conduct is just making the expectations of our staff who hold a state license the same expectations for those who don't. So staff who don't hold a state license would be individuals that secretaries, cafeteria workers, and custodial maintenance type employees. And there are times that they're dealing with money, they're interacting with the public, and interacting with students. Related to policy, OSBA is our advisor, and they have a large set that they need to send us in their first quarter of 2025, which is typically February. Talking with that consultant last Tuesday, they were hoping to open it up, but legislative changes continue, and so they want to hold that set until a later date that they could at least try to have all those changes captured. It's like a running carousel, so I don't know if you'll be able to find a time to stop and step off. But they said that they didn't want to issue a bunch, and then some of those have to get pulled back, and now boards are taking action on stuff that's already out of date. So those policies, once we have them, we'll review them, and they'll come to the board for a first reading, and then a second reading as we typically do. Item 2, the high school course guide. So it's attached for this coming school year. And also attached are the changes. There, we're removing making modern media, and we're replacing it with STEM building Minecraft. That's kind of what Julie did talk about. Yep. And then also discrete math for computational perspective. Wow. Okay, that sounds like really high math. So above superintendent level math class there. So no, that's good. Again, Julie talked about how we offer these rigorous courses on campus, which provide that student life experience here. The next two are CCP partnerships. So we have students enrolling in Lorain County Community College and then also Tiffin University. And so we have these agreements as far as just charting the course for that. Next is the athletic conference membership. So the recommendation is that for the 26-27 school year, we would leave the Sandusky Bay and join a newly formed conference yet to be named. So Tim and Matthew are here to provide additional details. Really, the ADs of the districts do the day-to-day working together on scheduling and all that kind of stuff. The way the conference is structured, though, the voting right sits with the high school principal. So the AD committee can make up all sorts of great things, and then the principal committee can say thanks but no thanks. So this has gone through that process of the ADs reviewing it, and I'm going to stop and let them take over.
Make a brief statement quickly and just answer any questions that you might have. So that we just request permission to withdraw from the Sandusky Bay Conference effective at the end of the 25-26 school year, create a new 10-team league with the following schools: Bellevue, Fort Clinton, Clyde, Norwalk, Sandusky, Columbian, Perkins, Vermilion, and Edison. I don't know how far and how deep you want me to go on this, but if you have questions for me, go ahead.
I know Sandusky has already voted to accept this, correct? Can you tell us what schools have already voted to accept this new league?
That's all going to their board members, so it just depends on when their board meeting was dated. So I think we're 5th or 6th right now. So
Just, I think we've kind of gotten the why behind the what on this previously, but for the benefit of the
Sure.
public, can you just give like a real quick overview
Sure.
as to why this change is
yeah,
happening?
the goal of the SBC was always to get to 24 schools and divide those to 8, 8, and 8. And one of the beauties of this league was that it really benefited a school like that didn't have a league to play in. Like if they had soccer at their school, but they didn't have, the other 7 schools didn't, they would come up to the bay or they would come up to the lake. As time went on with scheduling and trying to entice other schools to come into our league, we found that we accepted 13 schools that were all river size. And then as
Being
enrollment,
small, right? River
correct,
being
yep.
small. Yeah.
And as enrollment declined here with us in Huron, we became river size. We became one of those small schools. So, by our bylaws in the SBC, they talk about we should move down, and at that time it was Willard would move up, or Lakota would move up and take our place in the bay. So that they respectfully declined that offer, and they have the voting power because they have the majority. So it became a source of frustration for other schools. Edison was in the same situation 2 years ago because they go on the 2-year count every other year. So it just became frustration that it's almost like an impasse, like nothing was working. Bay schools go up and play lake schools out of a mandatory crossover. And when we look down to the river school and say, could you do that for the bay schools? That was respectfully declined. So we had a situation where our bay schools were traveling 3 to 4 hours on a bus to play a sport when they crossed, and that team in the river had the exact same schedule open, and it just didn't happen. And a lot of that comes with discrepancy of sizes of enrollment and why they did that. But it became obvious that this wasn't going to work anymore. And so the 10 schools that I listed decided, like, for the best interests of us, we would withdraw from the SBC and create a new league. And just one more point on that whole thing is that with all the different sports, there's actually 7 different combinations of who's in your conference. 7 different combinations of who's in your conference. You just kind of look at that and just like, where's the rivalry? Where's the the passion in games, and you really want to beat that team and things like that. So it just didn't. We tried. They tried for a decade, and it just didn't work.
Thank you.
Then item F is continuation of our membership with Ohio High School Athletic Association. Sorry, did you?
I didn't know if Matthew had anything he wanted to contribute to the conversation. Come up and talk in the mic.
There are some scheduling conflicts and combinations that don't make sense. And I think one of my big things was travel time. So you talk about soccer, for example, Vermillion traveling to Old Fort, Huron traveling to Old Fort. I mean, it becomes kind of a, Northwood comes in next year, and you've got Woodmore. So you're talking a lot of travel time on a weeknight for a soccer game. Girls play at 7, boys play at 7. They're not getting home until 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. So that was another thing to keep consistent with travel time. So, everything he said was great.
And then our week 4 Saturday game or week 4 Michigan team.
Yeah.
This will address that.
Yeah, this year we had a week 4 opening, which is consistent every year, and that's pretty tough. You start to talk football. 1, 2, 3 is usually non-conference, and anything like week 1 could be non-conference, week 2 could be non-conference. But I would say majority of schools in Ohio stop after week 3 and then they start their conference play. Well, in our unique situation, we have week 4 as a non-conference game. So finding teams is kind of tough. So last year they played a team from Michigan, and this year the travel time was too great for Dayton Dunbar to come play us in football. So we played on Saturday. Well, in the same breath of kind of what Mr. Lamb said, Margaretta also had an opening week 4, and that didn't happen. So I know that Mr. Camella had reached out when he was here last year, and nothing ever happened. So that was frustrating, but that's obviously it was before I started. So that's a great example of a time where it seems pretty easy to play, but it just didn't happen. So.
Let's see that end, and Matthew or Tim, will the new conference to be named later, will there be like essentially guarantees or rules in there ensuring like scheduling or commitments to schedule so that we don't find ourselves back here, especially situationally, like, I don't know, some program gets strong for a few years and then nobody wants to play. Those are not long-term strategic, right? Like considerations.
we talked like essentially like having your cake and eating it too kind of thing. Like we're not going to be doing that. We've talked already. Just preliminary conversation has been playing your every team in your conference. So it'd be the new conference. Essentially, would be 2 divisions within that conference. You play everyone in yours twice, and then you do a mandatory crossover. And we have a whole schedule kind of made out. I think through 2030 already. So that was kind of something that your mandatory crossovers, 2 teams from the other conference, and then that would rotate per season. So in the fall you'd play 2 different ones, in the winter you'd play 2 different ones, and then in the spring you'd play 1 different one, but then 1 that you played in the fall. So and that rotates every year. Where like the team you played in the fall in 2026 and 27 it goes 2 years, and then the team you play, and that team is now your winter crossover. So it's confusing, but it makes sense when you look down and you say, okay, we're not playing, just for example, so like you said, someone gets really good at girls basketball. I don't have the option to say, hey, we're good this year. If they're in the mandatory crossover, we have to play them. So,
Right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you both. So then the Ohio High School memberships, we'll continue that. We have letter item G is school bus charter services. So different educational partners or government entities have asked for support with transportation services. So those are listed there. Certified staff, there's just 2 items. Twice a year, staff can make a salary advance based on additional educational credits. So there's 2 of those this year, or this time. The next time it would be September that we would see those. For classified recommendations, we have a resignation from a cafeteria worker. She loves the job. She loves working with the kids, so she actually is getting scooped up by our North Point room, doing a longer day working with the kids. So good for her staying, in our service realm. But we got to find another cafeteria worker. And so that leads to last month the board approved a change of assignment for an educational aide and opened up 4.5 hours. And so we have that replacement here. Previously approved was a resignation for retirement. She's asked to move that from March of 26 to May 30th of 26, and so that's what we have there. We have Matthew Ayers as Director of Activities and Athletics, advancing from his 1-year limited contract to a 2-year limited contract. And I'd just like to say that working with Matthew, he and I meet, I'm his evaluator. He and I meet weekly to just touch base, make sure everything's going well. As I look at his evaluation key accomplishments for this year, he has 3. First is social media and branding improvements for Huron Activities and Athletics. I think he's knocking that out of the park with his social media presence and his branding guide that he's created and issued to all coaches so that we have clean and non-pixelated, data-friendly branding. His second key accomplishment is the game day environment and student involvement with game day activities. And I've gotten feedback from various community members, staff, complimenting the student experience for kids. At the game last week, it was a pretty rowdy student section, appropriately rowdy student section, and so that was fun to see. And then the last is performing his day-to-day responsibilities, which in year 1 he's accomplishing those as well. As I talked with Matthew, I said, Matthew, looking forward for the next 2 years, what should we be expecting out of your office? And he shared that he's already working on an advisor and coaching handbook, setting the rules of the road, making those expectations written and clear for all that are involved in his department. Looking at onboarding processes, how to improve those so that people understand the One Huron mentality, the culture of Huron, and the tradition of excellence that we have. He's also looking at revising and improving the student handbook and agreements that they sign as being extracurricular participant. He shared that this year he's been working on being sure that all coaches and advisors receive an evaluation. And then down the road, he could see that evaluation tool being refined so it's more informative and more goal setting and proactive as opposed to just reactionary. One comment he got from a coach, longtime coach, was in the last 12 years, this is his first evaluation. So he's addressed that sort of immediate need regarding that, and then building in processes are to come. He talked with me about continuing to develop coaching selection and succession planning, which ties back to the evaluation process, and then strategic review of coaching, compensation, and staffing resources and needs, and staffing and resources needs. Strategic review, and one example he had was talking about strength and conditioning programs. There is, I don't want to say an inequity, but access to the weight room and access to a rigorous strength and conditioning program is really program based. So if you have a coach who knows that stuff and is available to open up those spaces, then you get greater access than one who's not. So looking at that, continuing to build strong collaborative and collaboration with support groups like the boosters. So like we talked about, being more understanding of what are we collecting fees for and what are you collecting fundraisers for, would be one example of that boosters relationship. And then that leads into then improving financial governance, budgeting, fundraising efforts, and things like that. So those are aspirational. I would say with a 2-year limited contract, he would have time to be working on those then. And so that's on the agenda today. Also, we have some exempt staff coverage for long-term leave, and then approving additional substitutes. I'd like to thank Chad for his recruiting efforts on substitutes. It's one of those things that used to be seasonal, used to be like the August, September time, we're trying to recruit for the new school year, and then like the December, January, we're trying to recruit for the new semester. Anymore is ongoing and continuous. So we're thankful for all the staff that maybe do extra hours to cover a coworker's vacancy. At the end of the day, we need more subs. It's a great way to be involved in the school. It's a great way to see kids in a different way than being just a parent. We have a lot of parents that are great subs for us, and they know the kids, they care about the kids, and they see them in a different way. On this list here, there's at least 2, maybe 3 that are aspiring to explore that whole bus driver opportunity. So 2, yep, thanks. So classes, onboard instructing, testing with the state, all that fun stuff. That takes time. So if someone today raises their hand and says, I want to be a bus driver, it's probably going to be 3 to 4 months before they're actually behind the wheel, independently driving a busload of kids. So it does take time. But so thank you to Chad for recruiting. Always send people who have interest, send them our way. And again, if you you can only give so much time in a day. So hey, I know the secretaries work 8 hours, but I can really only work 4 or 6. We'll take that 4 or 6 as opposed to not having that sub at all. So so reach out to the building principals, myself, or Chad, and we'll get you going. Item J, we have supplementals. So these are the final spring supplementals. I believe this is it as far as supplementals for this school year. And in May, we would start renewing or approving supplementals for the new school year. And then stipend, we have one of our new employees who's seeking to be a ticket taker. So that compensation. So if there's any other questions, though?
Hi, OHSAA membership. I just wanted. I saw Matthew's post today about Lakota charging $5 to park cars at a district basketball game. Never heard of that before. Like, I'm just not sure like how we get a feedback loop back to the OHSAA, but like the money grab at some of these events has gotten like beyond disgusting.
Yeah, so
it's just it's ridiculous.
So I would say the money grab. You're right. There's a money grab, and it's mostly the biggest hand is the Ohio High School Athletic Association.
No question. No question.
Without a doubt. So what?
But
used to,
is that coming from the OHSAA allowing it, or is that Lakota just saying, "Why not? Let me see if we can get some more money out of these folks."
So that's Ohio High School Athletic Association allowing it. So a few years ago, when you hosted, you used to get a portion of the ticket sales. You used to get additional stipends from Ohio High School Athletic Association to pay for your gate workers, scoreboard workers, and the rest. They scaled back those stipend payments, and the districts who host don't get any of the gate money. Even then, districts were allowed to charge for a parking fee. So they were allowed to charge parking. I've been to events where it's the school sends it off to a booster group or a PTA, PTO, and says, if you want to have people out here collecting money, go ahead and do it. So that is one that's been a long-standing, and thankfully not a lot of schools take advantage of it. Having a child of my own that was in several playoff games the last many years, there are districts that do it, and there's districts that don't. So, yeah, that one, though, is more of a Lakota decision than a high school. So,
because then on top of that, they're paying $10 a ticket or whatever it is. It's shameful.
Yeah, and I would say Ohio High School listened to people last year when they were charging astronomical amounts, and now they scaled those back, and they definitely have a reasonable I think it's $5 for students, which is nice. So, thankfully, working with Chad and Matthew, they, at least for the parking with students, we're offering a spirit bus for Thursday's game. And so the students will be able to save some money by not having to pay for that parking. I didn't know they were doing that. That's okay. And the other note is that Ohio High School Region Northwest Region District has informed us that our game starts at 5:30, not the previously posted 6 o'clock. So we're working to get that word out. And when I talked to the scheduler, I said, so what do I do when I have a community member that shows up at 5:50 thinking they're going to see tip off at 6? What do I tell them? And she didn't have a great answer for that one. But the other was, what do I do when I have to get elementary kids home and we don't have a bus driver because they're out running the team to the event? And she didn't have a great answer for that either. And so I finally said, well, what if our team doesn't get there till 5:15 because that's when the bus service is available? She declined my request for money to pay for a charter. That was, but she, so we're working with them. Chad's doing a nice job getting the bus drivers coverage, and obviously I didn't share with her that both Chad and I can drive a bus. So I may be behind the wheel Thursday, but that's okay. That's all part of the fun. But some of the other reasons they're changing it is Lakota did have trouble getting one set of fans out and the other in time for an on-time start, and they don't want the second game to get too delayed because then kids are getting home super late. And the other, obviously, is that our opponent has 2 teams playing the same night at 2 different locations. So if that was us with 2 teams playing at 2 different locations, I would hope the other team would be accommodating as well. So we're making it work, but just again, I'm going to say it, 5:30 tip-off, so get there early. Because if you're there at 5:50, you're going to miss half the action. So, but yeah, I didn't know Lakota's doing that. Anything else?
Any other questions, thoughts? Okay. We need a motion for consent agenda items under sections 5 through 7.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Rager? Mrs. Henners? Mrs. Hartley?
Yes. Yes. Board discussion action items?
Yeah, so the first item is the Stakeholder Facility Committee. Obviously, Beth's not here, but Chris is on that too. So Chris, I don't know if you want to kick it off.
Sure. We last time, I think we had an update here. We had new direction on which way we wanted to look at for AVG to give some more input on the cost of those activities to renovate the schools and add on to 2 sites at the high school and McCormick. We're still waiting on that work. They're working on that, and we plan to meet March 9th to review that information and with the full committee again and see where we go from there.
Say it's to add on at McCormick and the high school?
Sorry, Woodlands.
Woodlands, okay.
My bad.
Thanks.
Thanks for catching up.
No, it's okay. I was like, oh,
That would be
I thought it was a 2.
exciting. Yeah.
Turn on the-
Hey, adding on everything.
That would be super.
So, but I would just say, Mike and I and administrators have been attending those community meetings, and really the discussion is good. It helps inform, what is it that we need to meet our students' needs, our instructional needs, and what is it that the community wants to see out of their facilities. So I think it's been good to, sort of slow down a little bit and get that input from the community stakeholders. And when we come out with, when the committee comes out with their recommendation, it'll be from the community as opposed to from the administration. So, yep.
Item B, 2025 commencement, May 30th, 2025.
So I can kick this off. Just when the calendar was posted for the 24-25 school year back in February of 23, it included the commencement date of this Friday, May 30th. It's traditionally in the last several years been Fridays. I think a lot of times it's been the Friday of the holiday weekend, because prior to then it might have been on Sundays. And then when the holiday happened, I don't think anyone wanted it during the middle of the holiday weekend. So it was really to kick off that weekend and have commencement. This year, the holiday is the Monday before, and then we have scholarship awards night that Wednesday, and then Friday is commencement. Friday morning kicks off with the seniors parade and all that fun stuff. And we roll into commencement that evening. I hear the concerns that parents have, and we have had extracurriculars happening during the commencement, and we always work to make it special. So is it the same? Of course it's not. Do we work to make it special for the kids who have a school conflict? We do. We will do that again this year for any kids that do. I don't know if there's any more you guys want me to say about this year's commencement.
I understand and am very empathetic to the parents that are here that have seniors graduating that are torn between, graduating with their friends and the fanfare that goes along with that, but also participating in a sport that they've worked for 4 years so hard and showing school spirit and showing up and doing that sport. I empathize with you. I don't think it's an easy decision. I guess I wish, it's not, the board didn't set the commencement date. It was on the school calendar. We approved the calendar back in, 2023?
February.
So it's a really tough situation. And like Dr. Tapman said, we have had this happen before. We've had it happen with boys baseball, and we had administrators go out to the baseball field. The players took their caps and gowns, and their families were there, and they did do a very special graduation ceremony for them there. And the majority of the parents thought it was really kind of cool that they got their own special graduation ceremony. I honestly don't think there's a win-win situation in this situation. I think the best thing we can do is have foresight and change it for the following school year. But that being said, that's just one opinion, and I obviously don't have any skin in this game with a child graduating, and it doesn't affect my students' graduation or sporting event. So
I think too, in February of 23, we were still the boys were in the division that they were in, that it would have been a Saturday. Not that we had the foresight to look that far ahead, that, hey, it's a Saturday. But this change happened with the divisional change, and I know too, I heard from some parents that, my daughter wants to go cheer for her teammates, and so now she has to decide between commencement and cheering for her teammates, and yeah, that doesn't sit well with me either. So also tonight, I heard, if not now, into the future. So looking at the 25-26 school year calendar, I'm not sure if there was an omission or if we did it for a reason back then, but commencement's not listed on the calendar. So looking at what we've typically done, it would be May 29th, Friday, May 29th. That's, again, not the holiday weekend. So as we get ready to set the 27 commencement for the 26 graduates, I would suggest that we're looking at potentially that Sunday the 31st, because it's not a holiday weekend, and it would definitely avoid any extracurricular activities. So, not that that's a recommendation tonight, but that's a thought that's kicking around.
well, and I have a question real quickly about, there was some talk about back then on a Sunday, it could be more difficult to have staff available to run graduation. I mean, I don't recall, obviously there's staff that's there and they're corralling kids and when they're doing graduation. Mr. Lamb is a big part of graduation. You're a big part of graduation. The board, gets to be part of graduation. But aside from that, we have the band, we have kids or the chorale that would sing. And then there are staff that show up to honor the graduates, and then there's staff that show up because they want to give their graduate their diploma. Am I missing? I mean, do we have janitorial staff? I know they set up the field, tear down the field. Is that an issue on a Sunday?
I would say for a Sunday, you might see a dip in staff participation, but we have staff that care about the students that they serve, both teaching staff and support staff. If we said, hey, we're doing this ceremony on a Sunday and we need help setting up and tearing down, we would find staff to get it done. So staff aren't paid to come to commencement. It's out of like the love of their students and the love of the district that they come. So I think that would carry through to a Sunday participation as well.
So, like, thank everybody for sharing how they feel about this issue, because having one who just graduated, I have one coming up in a couple years, so I certainly can appreciate, like, it's one of those moments you want for your kids and your family. Like, my concern about, like, the setup today is if there's another side or another point of view to this issue, those folks, they're not going to be heard tonight because they don't know necessarily that this is on the table. So I do think, like, this time last year, I had a senior, and based on a schedule, we had booked Airbnbs for out-of-town family, and, you know, made we had family who had made plane reservations to be there on a Friday night. If that would have changed this time last year, that would have been really tricky. Like, it would have created downstream consequences for other folks. So I just lay that out because I think, unfortunately, where we are timing wise, this is a hard adjustment to make at this point in time. I fully think it's something we ought to look at in the future. I mean, when I graduated in 1996, we did back then graduate on Sunday. Back then, we worked with the churches. Obviously, you got to have your worship services happen in the morning, so we wouldn't want to interfere with that. But there was actually like a baccalaureate ceremony that happened, and then that kind of kicked off graduation. You know, it was done in the past, and obviously we, for the last 15 years or so, have gone to Friday nights. But to me, if we're going to make a change, I think we owe it to the whole group to do it with enough advance notice that people who relied on the schedule we published 18 months ago aren't finding themselves scrambling now, 3 months out. And I'm sorry, I wish I had a better solution for you guys, because it's a junky situation to be in for one side or the other.
I have a question. I was looking at the schedules, and so last year's weekend was the same weekend as, like, for track, for instance, regional was the same graduation date as the dates they published for that. And I don't know the sport well, like when they did everything. So were you just saying that our division changed which day we are on, and that was after we approved the schedule?
That's my understanding. Yeah.
Some of this was OHSAA changed away. Some of this is first.
For the last several years, our track teams, boys and girls, go to the same
Together.
location. They compete at the same region. This year, because the boys did they go up or down?
Down.
They went down, yeah. And the girls went up. The girls they stayed. So now we're going to 2 different sites on 2 different days. And I mean, Ohio High School, I guess they just friendly reminded us that they're boys and girls sports, and it's not like it's track is a boys track and a girls track. I don't know. So.
And what sites, you go to Lexington, or where?
It's a good clip. It's not this year, though. That's fine.
So again, in February of 23, we wouldn't have been able to know this conflict. Not that makes it feel better for you guys, with kids graduate.
I mean, it's tough because it really, we should do everything we can to avoid a sanctioned Ohio high school, sporting event or events if the other teams would be helping fall on those days too. But it's hard. Like you said, I mean, it's already almost March.
Is there any merit to this week still trying to do some kind of parental survey monkey to see those that aren't here to, you know, talk about the other side to throw input in, or is that just make it even more chaotic?
I think even if like, well, I think one, Grant Bauer provided us a petition signed by students, and I'm gonna guess, Tim, how many graduates do we have this year? 90? Oh, we have 100. Okay. Of the 100 students, Mike, how many students signed it? 9. So, not that that's an official survey. Even if we had a survey where a good number of parents were like, move it, I don't know if logistic. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just throwing ideas out there. I'm just asking. Right. It like everyone has said, it's a really unfortunate situation.
So, go ahead.
You said the boys run at 5. Is it 5 o'clock only? Because I know they're on a time.
Start.
So they're not running at 5. They could be running at 6:40.
It could be running at 9, right?
Well, Julie wrote down like a 7:30 commencement on, commencement under the lights, but that probably wouldn't help. No. Okay.
Need a helicopter. Yeah.
It's not a straight shot back here.
No, it's
No,
not.
right. I mean, would the board like a survey to go out? Or,
I mean, I don't want to muddy the waters even more than they are, and I just, I guess the parent in me would like to find a solution that works for everyone. I mean, I feel like we're punishing kids for being good at a sporting event and wanting to show up for their school to do well by not. I don't know. It's a really hard decision.
Not a. This is absolutely like a company. Is there something you could think about for the rehearsal that happens? Same might just be, but like Friday morning, where it's not as good as being there Friday night, but at least you'd have caps, gowns, all the classmates there, and a chance at least to recognize folks. If what's that? I mean, I just.
so you're saying like invite parents to dress rehearsal? Yeah.
And certainly, I mean, I'd be there. I mean, that's something that I'd be happy to be there for. I mean, just not that we're the highlight, but if it, to make it more official. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hate not having a better solution. I really do.
So typically we don't have parents at dress rehearsal. So we opening it up to them is getting us closer. I know, mom in the front here, she's not happy. Okay.
I think that's a really interesting idea. I really do. I mean, you still get, you're graduating, you have your cap and gown on, you're with your friends. You know, not all of your friends' parents are going to be there, obviously, but all your friends are going to be there, and I'm assuming dress rehearsal on Friday morning, the band could be present and the choir. Oh, Thursday. I have no doubt that you'll make it special. I mean, I really don't. Trying to brainstorm how to make it as special as possible.
So Tim, did you just say you'd do it on Thursday, or you'd have a rehearsal Thursday, you do Friday morning second rehearsal, and then
Do it Thursday when we have all the kids there.
Yeah, in their gowns.
Instead of making them come back to the stadium on a Friday morning, just we've got them there. They're captive. I think we're starting this year at 10 a.m. So we go through the practice, line everybody up. You've gone through graduation a couple times now. You've seen the, Brooke Kukai does a great job with it, but there's a lot of planning that goes into that. So we would want to make sure that we got those kinks out first, and then do a dry run with it and go through it that way. Might even ask you to give a speech. Give a speech at the graduation. So we'll see. Yeah. So we can do some things like that. I'll work with Brooke and we'll create something.
my personal feel is that we should try to figure something out because of the change in the divisions and everything, and it's an Ohio high school sanctioned sporting event. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of late though to just change it to Sunday. I mean, there's a whole lot of other people, like Stacy said, that aren't here that may have whatever. But we definitely need to take that into account, like on those potential high school schedules. But you don't know the division change like that is, I think, what caught us here.
And I'd say, I mean, again, we should look at Sunday going forward, but I think we also have to be mindful that the OHSAA does crazy things. So, I mean, if I recall right, not that John's still here, I think there were softball state final games being played on Sunday because now there's seven divisions that have to get played out over a weekend. So if I remember right, when Monroeville played, they were playing, or somebody was playing on a Sunday. So I caution to say that we could literally change everything. And believe me, as a mom of a softball player, if that's the problem we're having, my daughter would be ecstatic, right? Of having to work that out. But, we're kind of at the mercy of an entity that is not obviously at $5 parking within our control, or even necessarily exercising good judgments of what's best for kids all the time, right? So,
What is the board's thought about placing? To honor those students that are going to be possibly running or competing in a sport on Friday?
I think it's not ideal, right? It's not perfect, but I think it hits the things I've heard parents saying that make it special. Being in the stadium, being with peers, and it's a dress rehearsal. It's a time where everybody's already going to be there and going through that process. So if it's the parents of those kids who would actually be, receiving their diplomas, I think it seems like the best we could do out of, just unfortunate circumstances.
Do we need to make a motion for doing that, right? Or can we just?
And we're not really, we're not changing the calendar. We're just, yeah. I'm hearing board members committing to coming to the dress run and making, yeah. Good. Item C.
Tax incentive review council.
do you want to allow anybody who wants to do that?
Sure.
That they would be
Sure,
more than
anyone-
welcome to be
yeah.
excused. We won't.
Anyone does-
We'll take no offense to.
So annually in March, Mike and I are invited to the Erie County offices to conduct what is called the Tax Incentive Review Council meeting. Mike is the voting member that represents the district at that. At that, you have six members that vote. So the Erie County Auditor, the Erie County Assistant Prosecutor, Administrator, Regional Planning Director, a representative from the City of Huron, and then a representative from the schools. At that meeting, we review all of the TIFs that are on record or on file with the county, and there's discussion for continuation or not of those. Last year at the meeting, there was one on the agenda that the property had changed hands, so it changed ownership, and at the time of the passage of it, there was a requirement that the owner have, I think it was like 35 or 40 employees actively at that site, and that was also not being fulfilled. So I think the site's vacant right now. But at that meeting, one of the representatives, I can't remember who, the minutes would show it, made a motion to terminate that TIF because of those reasons. Changed ownership, and they weren't meeting the number of employees at the site condition. So that meeting's coming up for Mike and I here March 12th, again at the Erie County offices. One that came up with recent activities in the community was discussion about the ConAgra property TIF that was awarded back in December of 2022. And so that one is still in effect, and I think applicable for the new project. So I was asked to bring it up. I don't know.
No, so what the question is does the board have the ability to terminate or rescind this TIF agreement? And from what I understand you telling me that the board can make a motion to appoint Mike to make a motion at this meeting to rescind or terminate the TIF from 2023. And so we need to decide as a board, do we want to direct Mike to do that? Because the scope of the project that we approved that TIF for has changed. It's not the same company, it's not the same scope of project, and I think it would be foolish to leave that in place. But that's something that the board needs to direct Mr. Lamberios to do when he goes to that meeting in March.
Yeah, was it 2022 or 2021? December of 21.
21.
And I'll tell you why that date sticks out to me. Because it was the very last meeting. We'd already been elected. Beth, Stacy, and I had already been elected, but hadn't been sworn in yet. Like, it was literally a week later we were going to be sworn in. And the city came with this proposal. And I spoke at the meeting. And actually, the meeting minutes, and you weren't the treasurer at the time, do not reflect what I actually said, which was, listen, like, the new board should be voting on this, and we should be, taking into account what we heard loud and clear from the community during the election, which was, hey, why are we giving away these tax incentives when we can't, especially at that time, we were like almost at the danger of running in the red. That particular project offered very few jobs. At least there were some jobs in that project. The new project offers no jobs. It's high-end condos. It's what is this doing? It's not meeting a need in our community per se. Maybe it's a want of a few people, but it seems like, and I don't have I used to do the math on these things. I don't have it today, but I know this. When we're talking about a TIF that would be under this new plan, about $6 million and maybe more would go towards building like a seawall for the condos, so that along the river that shores it up so that they can have nice docks for the nice boats. This isn't what the community needs. We are struggling to cobble together schools that are safe and functional, and we're in a little town, and this is where instead of money coming here to serve that purpose for the community, we're talking about building a new playground for rich summer people. I don't get it. I don't get why it's I didn't get it then. It bothered me then, respectfully, Jody, because you were on the board back then. It bothered me then that the board, that a lame duck board approved it. And it bothered me that the city asked them to, because they knew darn well if they came to us a week later, they wouldn't have had it. They wouldn't have them. So if we have any opportunity to make that right for the community, I think we owe it to the community to ask that question, you know, and we go from there. We've seen that when good investments and that are right for the community need to happen, RDOT didn't ask for a break. They're paying, what is it, $350,000 a year that they put their money. Moochie didn't ask for a break. Like we're a good community to be a part of, and people will pay to be a part of if it's an economically feasible project. If it's not, and you literally have to pay somebody to take property, $6, $7, $8 million to take property off your hands, one has to wonder if it's an economically feasible project. My 2 cents. I'll make a motion to authorize Mr. Limberios to, how do we want to word that, like?
I would say represent the board at
To vote to rescind the TIF in 2021.
But I want you to, I just want to make it clear too to the board that when Mr. Lamberios goes to this meeting and he makes a motion to rescind this tip, someone else at this meeting has to second his motion for it to be rescinded or dissolved. So, you know, we're at some of these, you know, county administrators will, if they're going to second it. So it's not just a done deal. I mean, it has to
Understood.
be- Yeah.
You have the, it's on the, discussion item.
Wording?
Yeah, it says.
Yeah, I'm just gonna write it as like news.
I'll second the motion.
Mrs. Henners, Mrs. Mask, Mr. Rager, Mrs. Hartley.
Yes. Thank you. Moving on to new business. Is there any new business that needs to be brought before the board this evening? We'll be entering executive session this evening to consider the appointment, employment, and/or compensation of a public employee. Do we expect action?
No action, just update on personnel
Okay.
changes that are on the horizon.
Okay. So, those who are not planning on staying after our executive session, our next regular meeting will be Monday, March 24th at 6 p.m. here. And, we'll go ahead and enter executive session.
Need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Jody, Julie's gonna join us too.
Okay, great. We can just do
That's
consent.
great. Yeah.
come to the bridge.
You already announced it at the next meeting. I just want to share. We worked with the city for the August ice cream social, and the boat racing was available on Wednesday every morning, Thursday. So we're looking at the Monday before school starts. In the rain out, then an open house Tuesday night and serve ice cream.
Okay.
So I was walking the dog yesterday. That's the same as. So I think what we'll do is have ice cream social at 5:30. We'll probably move the board meeting to 7.
Do we get ice cream?
Yes.
Okay.
Then we're in.
Then, yeah.
We could do it at the whole So, but no, we'll deal with it.
All right. Okay, we just need a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Second. Mrs. Hartley,
Yes.
Mr. Reiger,
Yes.
Mrs. Henners,
Yes.
Mrs. Mast.
Yes, thank you.
Well, if it's a mango, you might not get the birthday, but anyway, so you might want to plan.
True.
For $8 million.
Nice job explaining it.
For $8 million. We'll find another.